Hey everyone, it's Kathryn Gaines. Can you guys hear me? I am from Richmond, Virginia, and we're going to learn about Italian macarons today. I'm trying to pull up the video on my laptop so I can see your questions better when it happens. Alright, so if you're around and you can hear me, that's great. Hey Courtney. And yeah, I'm gonna hold on for a couple seconds until we maybe get a couple more people here, and then we'll get started making macarons. I'm actually gonna turn my oven on right now to get it preheating. I bake my macarons at 320 degrees Fahrenheit. A lot of people bake them a lot lower. I find this is what works for my oven. If you've baked macarons before, I'd try using the settings that you're used to using. If not, then go ahead and set it to 320 and we'll see how it goes. Alright, I'm going to flip the camera now so you guys can actually see what I'm doing and then not see my face, so that's great. Hey Tambi, we are learning Italian macarons today. I know you love macarons, so maybe you can make them yourself. That'll be fun. Alright, I'm going to put the phone in my mount and we will get started. Oh. Okay. So to start out, we are going to look at our ingredients. So I have everything pretty much measured out right now except for the egg whites and my water. So I have 190 grams of almond flour here, 205 grams of powdered sugar. I have my Bob Evans egg whites, and I have an egg, and I'll show you what to do with those shortly. And then I have a pot with 190 grams of just regular granulated sugar or caster sugar. A lot of people like to use. I don't find that there's any difference. I like using Blue Diamond almond flour. Here is the bag. This is what works well for me. I'm sorry, that's upside down for you guys. Here. I buy mine from Amazon. I know that Sam's Club sells it also. You can also use Kirkland almond flour. They're a little finer than some of the others. I've used almond flour from Aldi. I find it a little oily, so I have to prep it by baking it first. But whatever you guys use, give it a try, and if there are issues, we will troubleshoot later. So I'm going to take my bowl. I have a sort of medium-large size bowl here, and then I'm going to take my sifter. This has a little leftover almond flour and powdered sugar from earlier today. I'm just going to leave it in there. And I am going to add my almond flour, about half of the almond flour and half of the powdered sugar in here. I know for me, my sifter does not hold all of it, so I am just doing half and half so it mixes together, and then I'll do the rest in the second batch. I find that with the Blue Diamond almond flour, I don't need to process it in a food processor to make it finer. It's good just like this. So I just sift it once just to try and it helps mix things together, and I found that my powdered sugar actually lately has been really clumpy. So I like sifting it to help get rid of the clumps there. Alright, so that's A lot of it's through. I'm gonna put the rest in here. I'm gonna put these little cake pans aside. I have very little counter space in the kitchen. So we're just gonna sift the rest of this here. And so the interesting thing with Italian macarons is they, you start off with your almond flour and your powdered sugar, and you add in half of your egg whites to this mixture. So it's a little different than some of the other methods where you add them in at the end when they're dry. An Italian method uses the Italian meringue, so we'll be making a sugar syrup on the stove. So I have some lumps in here. You can see I'm just kind of using a spoon to scrape the stuff off the sides, and these are powdered sugar lumps, so I'm not worried about smashing them and getting them in. If you have large chunks of almond flour, I would recommend not trying to shove them through your sieve, because then you'll end up with bumpy tops. But for me, this is mostly chunks of powdered sugar, so I'm smashing it through to just get it through. So that's good enough. There's a little bit in the bottom of my sifter, if you can see there. That's fine. I just kind of leave it there because I make macarons pretty much every day. You can just throw it out if you don't plan on making them anytime soon. So now we have our almond flour and powdered sugar mixed together in this bowl, and we're going to set that aside for just a moment. I am now going to take my scale and put my mixing bowl on here. So I have a different kind of mixer than most of you guys are probably using KitchenAids. I have a Swedish mixer. I cannot pronounce the name of it, but it's really cool. This is one of the bowls it comes with. It comes with a plastic bowl that's good for like whipping egg whites or whipping up whipped cream or something, and then there's a bigger stainless steel bowl. It's really good for bread or anything that's heavier. So since it's plastic, I actually have two bowls. I have one that's like specifically for egg whites. You can see I have written on the bottom of it because I don't want to worry about any fats when I make cakes or anything messing with my meringues. And like I said, I'm making macarons almost on a daily basis, so it's really important to me to keep this bowl super clean and perfect for meringues. I'm going to rotate my stand so you can see my scale more upright for right now. So we're going to put half of our egg whites in this bowl, and this will get whipped into the meringue. So I find that I like to use one fresh egg white, and then I top up the rest with my carton egg whites. And I find that Bob Evans brand whips up really well. That's what works for me. I'm sure there's other brands that will probably work well. This is just what I have found that works best. So we're going to put half of our egg whites in this bowl. So that's 72 grams. So I'm turning on my scale and get my egg white in here. Of course, this egg cracked weird, but that's all right. And I don't have a way to use the yolks. I just throw them out because I use so many of them. And I actually lost a bunch of egg white here onto my scale, but that's okay. I'm just going to wipe it up so I have an accurate amount. Alright, we're going to start that over because I lost so much, but that's alright. Alright, here we go. Let's try a new egg. That one cracked weird. There we go. And this one broke too. Alright, this is not working well. Sorry guys. Hopefully your eggs are cracking better than mine. I'm just going to rinse out my bowl now so we don't have that in there. And this is why we should crack into a separate bowl. You'd think I'd learn this over time, but I like being fast and efficient, and it doesn't really work out. So let's do it third time's the charm, hopefully. My eggs are room temperature. I haven't found that it really makes a difference to me. My kitchen is also really cold. I live in a really old house and there's not much insulation in the house. And so right now it's 63 in here, which is really balmy. Courtney and I were doing this yesterday and it was in the 50s, I want to say. So room temperature for me is generally pretty cold. So like I said, these are room temperature, but take that with a grain of salt. Alright, so I'm dumping this actual egg white in here. They're generally, mine are about 30 grams or so, and so we need to get up to 72 grams. So take the Bob Evans egg whites and shake it up and top up the bowl until you get up to 72 grams. And I hopefully have enough in this carton. I think I will. Yep. Alright, I'm 1 gram off. That's alright. Put this bowl with your egg whites aside and put it on the mixer. We're going to mix that up shortly. I just put it to the side now. So now we're going to take back our other bowl that has the almond flour and the powdered sugar in it. And I'm sorry you can't see what my scale says, but we're going to add the other 72 grams into the bowl with the powdered sugar and the almond flour. I know I told you I only use Bob Evans. I actually kind of cheat and I use the store brand for this part because this part does not whip up at all. I have found that my store runs out of Bob Evans egg whites fairly often, so I try and conserve them. If you only have Bob Evans, go for it, and we're going to add it to here. Like I said, I just use these because I can't always get my hands on Bob Evans, so I try and use those only for whipping up my meringue. So add 72 grams to this bowl with your powdered sugar and your almond flour. Alrighty, that is all we need when it comes to egg whites, so you can put those to the side, put them back in your fridge, whatever you want to do. So now we're going to take this bowl and your spatula and just mix this all together. It's going to feel really dry at first, but it'll come together in sort of a thick paste. There's no technique to this. You just want to mix it all until it's all combined. You don't want chunks of powdery stuff anywhere. You don't want like a big mound of liquid. This is what's called, they call it the paste in Italian macaron making. It just gets everything sort of really mixed up here, and later we will fold in the rest of the egg whites. So I just want to make sure that I really get down to the bottom of the bowl. Sometimes a lot of the dry mixture stays on there. And you can see I'm just really like pressing against the bowl, just trying to combine everything, making sure there's not any powdery residue anywhere. Alright, so this is mixed really well now. There's a little clump here, gonna get that. And we're gonna put this aside. I'm gonna cover it up with some plastic wrap. I have a space heater going in my kitchen, so I don't want to dry this out. Alrighty, so this can go to the side now. Now we're going to work on our sugar syrup. So this is what makes Italian meringue is, so I have a pot here with my sugar in it, and it has 190 grams of granulated sugar, and we're going to add some water to this. This needs 60 milliliters or 60 grams of water. I have my water right here. I'm just going to pour this in. Pour it carefully because 60 grams is really not that much. Okay, I'm at 59, that's close enough. So I just kind of like swirl water around a little bit sometimes, mix it up. I don't find it really makes a difference if I do this or not. Now we're going to make the syrup part. So I'm going to move my phone and we're going to put the pot on the stove. And this is where things are going to get really interesting because it's going to, my stove's going to be different than yours. Like Courtney had a very different stove. Her syrup heated up much faster than mine. So I'm going to rotate over to my stove and I put mine on like a medium high. I don't like the syrup to heat up too fast, but I also don't want it to take forever. So it's going to take a little while, so I'm going to answer any questions that I can. We want to get the syrup up to 230 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we're going to turn on the mixer that has just our egg whites in it. So if you don't have your egg whites on your mixer, go put your bowl and your whisk in your mixer and get that ready to go for when we hit 230 degrees. And then we'll finish heating the syrup all the way up to 244 degrees while the egg whites are whipping up a little bit. Right now I'm actually going to prep my piping bag. I have this blue silicone bag I use for macarons. I can't fit the whole batch in here, so I pipe my first tray and then I put the rest in. And then I use an Ateco tip. It's an 804. I don't know if you can see that. I think it's about like a Wilton 12, I want to say. So I use a tip because I'm really picky about round macarons. That's why I cook them on silicone and not on parchment. I actually prefer to use parchment because I like the texture better, but they never stay round no matter what parchment I've used. So I use silicone and they stay perfectly round. So what I do is I put my tip in, and then I have one of those like little icing bag rubber band things that I put in the bottom so that when I fill the bag it doesn't just go through the giant hole at the bottom. And then I have a big or a small pitcher that I use, but you can use a glass or whatever you normally use for filling your piping bags. So while we're waiting for our sugar syrup to heat up, remember 230 degrees is the magic number. My sugar's not even melted yet, so it's going to be a little while. Just keep an eye on your sugar syrup. I use a Thermapen. This is the thermometer I use. It's really fast reading, and you can use a candy thermometer if you want to keep an eye on that. That's fine too. Just make sure it's accurate. You don't want to get it too hot, otherwise it will turn into like a hard candy, and that is not going to work very well in your mixer. So if you have any questions, I'm going to look over at my laptop and you can type them in and I will answer anything that I can. No questions. All right, that's cool. We're just gonna keep this going. I can talk about my mixer now. It's kind of cool. I think a few other people have it in the group. So this is it. This is it with the plastic bowl. And I'm going to put my whisk attachment on. So mine, it's sort of like the Nutrimel or the Bosch. So the whisks go on the top and they rotate around. And mine has two whisks, so my meringue is going to whip up a lot faster than those of you with a KitchenAid. We're just going to, you'll just have to like follow along with the process and stuff. Why Italian over French? So I live in Richmond, Virginia, and it is super humid here some days and it's super dry here other days. And sometimes it'll rain for a week straight, or it'll snow and then the next day it'll be sunny. I found with French macarons, they were really finicky, and I would have to rest them and wait. And when it's 100% humidity, they never really dry. So I have found that Italian macarons are just really stable and consistent for me, and I don't have to worry about the weather. When you're selling macarons like I do, you cannot just wait for it to stop raining because you want it to bake them. Like if I have a wedding order for 12 dozen macarons, I have to bake them. So Italian is just really consistent for me. I liked baking French. They're a little less involved in the baking process, but it's not, like I said, I could never get consistent results based on the weather. And since I switched over to Italian about 1.5 years ago, I can just make them whenever I want to, and they're ready to go. All right, so yeah, this is my mixer. It's cool. I like it. I can grab the stainless steel bowl here. So this is a stainless steel bowl. That's the brand. Like I said, I cannot pronounce it at all. But the stainless steel bowl, I'll put it on the mixer so you can see it, because like I said, it's kind of cool. The stainless steel bowl sits in here. I'm going to put the phone down so you're going to look at my counter real quick. And then there's an arm here that holds this roller. And then there's another part called the scraper. Sorry, I'm moving. Luckily, my kitchen's tiny. And so the scraper actually scrapes the edge of the bowl. So I'm going to turn it on, and you can see when you use this, the roller just rolls based on the movement of the bowl. So you can see the bowl spins. Nothing else here spins. What size is it? I think it's 7 liters. This is the only size it comes in, but I can do, I don't know if you make easy buttercream by Sugar Geek Show. I do 2 full recipes in here. If I do more than that, I've tried doing a little more, it ends up throwing things out of the bowl. But yeah, it's really cool. This goes in and out, and then this part scrapes the edge of the bowl. So when I'm mixing with this bowl in the mixer, I don't really have to ever like scrape the side of the bowl. So it's really awesome. I've really enjoyed it. My KitchenAid broke before I got this, and so I was just really frustrated with KitchenAid and didn't want to deal with another one. So this one has a 7-year warranty, and their customer service is amazing. I have actually broken one of these plastic bowls. It was my own fault, but they sent me another one within warranty. Does it have a lid? Yes, it does have a lid. So the lid is actually really super cool. It fits on the plastic bowl, and you can actually mix with the lid on. Like if I were throwing powdered sugar in here and it was gonna blow out everywhere, I could put the lid on and start mixing, because the lid holds itself off above the mixing thing. And then the same lid also fits perfectly on top of the stainless steel bowl. So it comes with both bowls. It comes with the lid. It comes with like the whisk, and then this also comes with these 2 wire whips. So sometimes I'll make small cakes in my other plastic bowl that uses fats. Like I said, I don't put fat in this bowl. And there's basically wisps, but they only have 2 thicker wires. And so if I'm using anything with like butter, then I'll use those instead, just so I don't worry about breaking things. So I only use these wire whips for doing whipped cream, making meringues like for the macarons or marshmallows, or that's about it. Oh, my chocolate cake is super duper loose and liquidy, so I'll use these for that. Otherwise, I'll use a stainless steel bowl normally, or sometimes I'll use the other ones. So I'm getting back to my now bubbling sugar syrup, and I'm gonna see what temperature we're at. So I'm at just about 230, so I am going to turn on my mixer. I turn mine on, with my mixer, basically the power knob will point straight to the right. I know most people who use a KitchenAid like to do macarons on like a level 4 or a 5. The thing with macarons is you need to make a meringue, and obviously you need to whip up the egg whites, but if you go too fast, then it will make really bigger bubbles, and it can make your macarons hollow. So right now we're waiting for the temperature to get up to 244 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we're going to pour the sugar syrup into the bowl. When we pour the sugar syrup in, I pour it down the side of my bowl. I don't pour it directly on my egg whites. I let it pour down the side, and it'll cool off a little bit on its way down. It does end up with a little bit on the side of the bowl that has like rehardened. I have never found that to be a problem. I also don't use a spatula or anything to scrape out the extra that's in the pan. I just pour it in, and what comes out, comes out. So let's check this. I find that once it hits 230, the temperature often goes up pretty fast. So we're just at 232. So never mind, we have a little bit of time. So yeah, we're going to make the meringue very shortly. Like I said, we're already making our egg whites. They should be kind of foamy and frothy right now. Mine are whipping up pretty well. Like I said, this mixer has 2 whisks, so it mixes up things really fast, a lot faster than when I was using a KitchenAid. If you have a Nutrimil or a Bosch, yours will probably be a similar situation, because I think those also have 2 whisks. So this is what my egg whites look like right now. My whisks are whipping around like crazy. Oh, and one other thing, I have found that I like to heat my sugar syrup on a slightly bigger burner than the size of my pot. I have an electric stove, and I found that when I did it on the burner that was the exact same size as this pot, it did not always melt the sugar on the edges of my pot. So this burner, you can maybe see, this burner is actually quite a bit larger. This is just how my stove is. If you have gas, I'm sure it's a little different. In induction, and it'll be different as well. So like I said, we're trying to get up to 244 with our sugar syrup. I'm at 241 right now, 242. You really want to make sure you don't go too much hotter. So mine just jumped up to 244. So I'm pulling it off, pull it off the stove, and I am going to bring the fount over, and hopefully you can sort of see. I'm going to pour this down the side of the bowl with my mixer. So it's cooling off slightly. I'm not going super slow, I'm also not going super fast. it will steam up because obviously it's a lot hotter than your egg whites are. Just letting the last bits that can drizzle out. Little drips. So I have a little bit left in the pot, you can see. The rest of this just doesn't pour out, so I just leave it. I don't put my pot right in the sink right away. I will shortly. Luckily, sugar is really easy to clean up. It will just dissolve, so eventually, once the pot is cool enough, I just throw it in the sink and I let it soak while I'm finishing up everything else. So now you can see my meringue is mixing up. Yeah, Courtney, keeping it under 245 is very key. No, there's not like a stiff peak or any place you want your egg whites to be. You just want them to start getting mixed up. They'll be a little foamy and frothy. There's not really an end goal for that point. We're really gonna look for a certain point here. I tend to mix mine a little less than some people. And this is where with macarons things kind of get a little tricky. Some people like a stronger meringue. I find with Italian method, the meringue is really strong as it is, and so I keep mine a little softer. But what we're looking for here is obviously you want it to be shiny. That's a good indicator for a good meringue. And I find that I want to see my whisks sort of pushing the egg whites in front of them, and you'll see like a little trail behind them. So you can sort of see occasionally there's a little gap here or there in the egg whites going on right now. It's not quite there yet, but it will be pretty soon. Like I said, with the KitchenAid, it might take a little bit longer just because you only have one whisk. And on a KitchenAid, I know a lot of people like to stick for a level 4 or 5. So it might take a while because your whisk is not going super fast. But it will get there eventually. And like I said, we don't want super huge bubbles. It is, otherwise you end up with big hollows. So we're getting there. What kind of mixer is this? It's a Swedish brand. I will type in the comments because I cannot pronounce it at all. People just call them monks because most people in the US know this. Okay, so my egg whites are almost there. You can see that there's starting to be like a gap behind the whisk as it goes around. So I'm going to pull out my bowl that has the almond flour powdered sugar paste and pull the plastic off because this is what we're going to need now. And for this one, I did not put any color in because when you're learning, I find it easier to do without any color. Sometimes color can mess with things. When I do use color, I like to add some gel color to the paste because I find that if I don't add the color to the paste, the almond flour won't pick up the color very well and it'll start to sort of look speckly. If I'm trying to go for a really deep color, I'll add powdered color to my egg whites and I will also add gel to the paste. Alright, so this is looking good. I'm going to turn this off, and you can see this is what my egg whites look like. They're not super stiff, but they're also not super droopy. This is the point I like them at. I'm trying to get this in focus. There you go. So you can see there. So I'm going to move the phone again so you guys can see my bowl. So here's our paste that we've already mixed up that we had set aside. And we want to add half of our egg whites to this. So I'm going to bang off the egg whites from my whisks. And I scrape them on the side. I don't work super hard to get it all off. There's too many little prongs there to make that happen. This does not have to be a precise science. I just take my bowl and scoop out about half-ish, not quite half. And this is the crazy part with Italian macarons, because normally you would think, okay, we have to be really careful about folding everything together. No. Right now, we're just squishing this all together. Your paste is really firm. It's going to be really stiff and sticky, and then your meringue is obviously really soft and light and fluffy. So just right now, we're adding part of the meringue to loosen up the paste. And you can sort of see I'm putting quite a bit of muscle into this. I really want this to mix together. I don't want to see any streaks of almond flour paste or streaks of egg whites. So this is a really important part, is to get this all mixed together like this. Otherwise, you will end up with funky streaks of things in your final batch. So make sure you really scrape down to the bottom and get any of the stiff paste off the bottom. Scrape your spatula against the side of the bowl and mix in anything that was stuck on there. So, like I said, there's really no technique to this. However you want to muscle this in together, go for it. So now I don't see any streaks of anything. There's no clumps anywhere. You can see it's a lot looser than it was. It's no longer as stiff. So now we are going to macaronage in the rest. So I work hard to get as much egg white out as I can. Obviously, with having the middle rod for this mixer, I do lose a bit more than I would from a regular kind of bowl, but that's all right. It doesn't seem to have impacted my macarons at all. So that's about as much as I get out. And here, I hope you can see it, but you can see this line right here. This is where I poured in the sugar syrup. It has not hurt my bowl at all, don't worry. This bowl can handle the hot sugar syrup. It's just hardened on the side because I drifted down. So that is something probably you'll see on any of your mixers when you put it on. So just don't worry about that, it'll be there. Alright, so now we are going to fold in the egg whites, and this is where we want to be a little more gentle. So I start by just folding. I fold from the bottom, I try and mix in a bit, and then we'll push some of the air out against the side of the bowl. But I like to try and mix in the egg whites a little more first, just really gently. If you haven't made your meringue stiff enough, it will be really loose and liquidy, and if you've made it really stiff, obviously it's going to be a little stiffer than this. So now I've folded it in. I don't really see any streaks of white or streaks of almond flour, so now I'm going to just push against the side of the bowl, side and bottom of the bowl a little bit. It helps push out some of the air, because I find macarons kind of strange. You work so hard to make this meringue with all this air and this fluff to it, and then you push it out, but that's just how it is. So this is still a little stiff. Sorry for the wobble. I hit my stand trying to hold it for you. Okay. So I test it. I let it drip off of my spatula. You can see it piled here. I wonder if I change the light a little bit, if this will help. Maybe you guys can see it better. So it did not like dissolve into itself. It's been a little while, obviously, since I mixed it around. So I am going to fold a little bit more and push against the bottom and side of the bowl a couple more times, and then fold it again. We don't want to mix this too much so it gets really runny. Then you'll end up with macarons that just spread out like pancakes, which is what I did the first couple times I made macarons. And it's better to undermix than overmix. They will end up a little tall and they may be a little bit more hollow if you undermix, and you'll end up with like a nipple on top. But if you overmix, then like I said, they'll just spread out and be really flat. So just testing it again. It's still not quite as flowing as I want. A lot of people say to look for lava. I don't really know what lava looks like. I don't live in Hawaii. It'd be nice, but the lava reference does not really work for me. So I don't really have a good reference for what you should look for. I've just done it enough that I know what I want it to look like. So this is looking pretty good. It's just kind of flowing off relatively easily, but not like super liquidy. So we're gonna stick with this. And now I'm going to take my piping bag that we had prepped earlier. And it's in my cute little IKEA pitcher. And like I said, I can only fit, I can't fit my whole batch in here. So I put about half of it in the piping bag right away. And then I set the bowl to the side while I pipe the first tray. And then after that, I can fit the rest in. I want to say this bag is a 16-inch bag. If you have a smaller bag, obviously put in what you can. Alright, I am going to move over to my mats. So here are my mats. I use Prince brand. I bought them on Amazon. That's what works for me. They have cute little cat shapes on them. I don't know why they have cats, but they do. I've never tried to make a cat. It's just kind of what works. I have found for my oven, I use 2 pans together, upside down. The mats don't fit perfectly on the bottom of the pan, and when you do it upside down, it allows for better airflow. So for me, I use one Nordic ware and one USA pan on top of each other. This is just what works for me. I find that it helps protect the bottom of the macarons from cooking too fast. If you have a top heating element in your oven, you might need to adjust that. I bake my macarons towards the top, in the top third of my oven, because my heat comes from the bottom. If yours comes from the top, you probably want to put your rack in about halfway, and then maybe you want to put just an empty pan above it just to help protect it. What size pans? These are half sheet pans. So now we have our piping bag. I'm going to take off my little holder, and you'll see that the batter just kind of flows through the tip really fast. So you can't see this first corner, but I'm gonna pipe it anyway. These have little dots that you want to aim for, and you want to pipe from the middle and hold your piping bag straight up and down. And I just squeeze gently until I hit about the inner circle, and just squeeze. And then I fling to the side. Some people do a little spiral. I do that if I'm doing ones that I have food coloring and I want them to mix. Normally I just squeeze and go to the side. Squeeze and go to the side. So this mat will bake up 24 shells. I've found that this batch of macarons makes me about 48 shells. It depends on if I end up piping them a little bigger or smaller. As much as I try, and I have these lovely templates on this mat, they do not always come out the same size. I wish I could find a magic way to make that happen, but it doesn't. So now you can see I still have stuff in my bag. I just kind of try and shake it down because I want to put the rest of my batter in the bag so it doesn't dry out in the bowl. If you haven't, like I said, if you have smaller piping bags, you should just like put the batter in the piping bags now, because we want to keep it covered, otherwise it'll get really dried out by the time you're on your 4th tray. So I just put my little rubber band thing on at the tip again. Sometimes I lose some at the tip, and then I pour the rest of my batter in. And I'm not really resting these macarons here, they're just sitting there so I can get the batter in my bag so it doesn't dry out. And you might find, depending on how dry your climate is, that there's a little bit of a skin on top of the stuff that's in your bowl. That's okay. Like I said, I have my space heater blasting full force, like right at my feet right now. There was a tiny little bit of skin. That's alright. I just mix it in very slightly and get the rest of this into my piping bag and twist off the top of the piping bag so that it stays all contained. I found this is the best way to get them, or to just keep the batter good for the full 4 batches. Now I bang my trays, so I find that I bang it about like 4 times each. Sometimes I bang them, and if my husband's on a work call, he literally is working in the next room over, and that's where he has to work. That's just how our house is set up. If he's in call, I'll just like whack my hand on the bottom. This is just to try and get some of the like bigger air bubbles out, and it'll help the little nipples go away. So you can see there's a little bit of nipple you can see, but as they bake, they'll go away. If you see any like really big obvious air bubbles, you can pop them with a toothpick, or I use my little OXO cake tester. They don't make these anymore, which makes me really sad. But if you have a cake tester, or you guys probably all have scribes because you make sugar cookies. I don't. You can use like a thinner scribe. So I just saw a couple of big air bubbles. I pop them, and I like to sort of squiggle around so that they, so like on this one you can sort of see a hole. I like to fill it in a little bit because sometimes those big holes end up baking into the dough. So this is what I love about Italian method. I don't rest. We pipe these and they're going straight into the oven. My oven again is at 320 degrees Fahrenheit. I have found that's what works for me. And here, I will show you. Sorry, I paused you guys. So this is my oven. Please excuse the bottom. My mother-in-law set it on fire the other day. Luckily it still works. I just need to clean it. But my rack is about a third of the way up. So now I bake mine for 18 minutes. So I'm setting my timer for 18 minutes, and we can ask and answer some questions. Normally when I'm doing this myself, I use these 18 minutes to clean up the kitchen. I have found that it's the perfect amount of time to clean all the dishes from making macarons, and gives me a little time to just chill and grab a glass of water or something. Does the mat leave the cross pattern at the bottom? No, the fibers on these mats are more towards the bottom of the mat here. So like you can feel the texture more on the bottom side of the mat. The top side of the mat is really smooth, so it doesn't really leave any sort of texture. It actually sometimes will leave, you'll see like the inner circle sometimes in the macarons, but that's it. And you can see like this is an older mat. You can see the yellowed circles. It still bakes just as good. I don't know why it's yellowed so much, but this one has. I used to have only 2, so my baking process was a lot slower. I now have a lot more pans and baking mats so that it is a lot faster. So does anybody have any other questions? We have about 16 and a half minutes to chill out while these are baking. No, I do not require I find with Italian method that you don't need to dry your shells. The meringue is stronger because of the sugar syrup, and so you can just put it in the oven right away. It hasn't. I'm not in a dry climate. It's a little dry right now because I have my space heater on. I do this when it's raining outside. I do this when it is 100 degrees humidity and 110 degrees outside. I do this when it's 30% humidity and it's negative 20 degrees outside. This is what I have found works, and this is why I love Italian method. Yes, this will be posted in the group under the event later. I can also try and write up a little in like a little bit of the recipe, like more in words, so you don't have just the ingredient list also, so that you can refer back to it a little more. Do I ever flavor the shells? Very, very rarely. I do chocolate ones, which is a totally different amounts of stuff. Chocolate ones are a different beast. We can do chocolate one live later. The cocoa powder, the fats in the cocoa powder really mess with the shells and stuff, and so I've actually messed around with the recipe that I use to find what works well. I use a little less cocoa powder than some other people. I have done a lavender shell. I had some lavender sugar, and so I use that in the syrup instead of just regular sugar. But in general, I do not ever really flavor the shells. I just flavor the fillings. And I don't have any fillings that we're going to make today. We're just going to do shells today. But what I use is I use Sugar Geek Show's Easy Buttercream. That's what I use on my cakes, and that's also what I use for the majority of my fillings. I have found that it's really easy to mix in jams for fillings. I like to, like if I want just a raspberry filling, I'll mix in a raspberry jam into the Easy Buttercream, and it works really well. It's really flavorful. Or strawberry. Sometimes I'll flavor the buttercream one flavor and I'll do like a jam filling in the center. That works really well too. I like amaretti flavorings as well. I'm more of a natural kind of flavors person. I know the bubblegum and the cotton candy ones are really popular. I haven't bought those. I'm sure they'd probably be pretty popular, but I like to stick for more of the like fruity flavors. I have done so many different flavors. I know Meredith and James have done a ton, and they just recently posted a bunch too. I actually just recently did a 12-day advent calendar, and every day was different and related to a different Christmas carol or Christmas movie. And so there were some interesting flavors like popcorn or figgy pudding and stuff, and that was really fun just coming up with those. So yeah, do I flavor shells? No, I don't find that to be advantageous, but I know some people will put in like cereals sometimes, or they'll do different nuts and stuff. I'm really interested in trying a pistachio one. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. Any other questions? we still have 12 minutes. So this is super fun. Hopefully you guys are learning from this. And I'll actually open the oven a little earlier to show you how most people test that their macarons are done. So yeah, what have you guys been up to today? Who's baking today? Do I rotate my tray halfway? No, I do not. I have found my really crappy oven that came with my house. It really bakes really evenly somehow. So I do not rotate my trays. You can if you know that your oven has hot spots, then I would rotate them. I used to, but I found it hasn't made a difference for me. How do I color my shells? Okay, so for me, I color my shells. If I just want a pastel color, I will mix in just some gel into the almond flour powdered sugar paste. That way the almond flour has some time to soak up the gel and it gets colored itself. If I'm going for a really dark color, I'll put a bunch of gel in the paste, but I'll also use Sugar Art dried powdered colors, and I'll put that into the egg whites that make meringues. And with those, I find that you need to let them sit a while, so oftentimes I'll mix the egg whites with the powdered color and let it sit for a while to try and let the color develop more. But I always put color in with the almond flour and powdered sugar, because otherwise it ends up speckly and I don't like that. Brenda, don't be nervous. I found that these are the easiest, there's not really foolproof macarons, but most consistent macarons for me. I think that a lot of people are worried about making a sugar syrup with the Italian method, but it's really not that difficult. You just have to keep an eye on the temperature and don't let it get too hot. Hey Lane, it's awesome you are making French macarons right now. I would love to hear how Italians go for you. Ooh, Valentine sugar cookies, Angela, that's awesome. I really need to get on my pre-sale stuff, which is actually great that we're doing this because these macarons will be part of my Valentine's Day pre-sale. I have I'm going to red shells, white ones like these with some gold specks on them, and then I'll do a chocolate shell also. I don't do sugar cookies. You guys have a lot more patience than I do. Anything that involves rolling out dough is not my thing. So I don't do pies, I don't do sugar cookies. If someone wanted to make me sugar cookies for me to decorate, I'd totally be down with that. But making the cookies themselves is not my thing. All right. Any other questions? Sorry, I'm trying to hold my phone really still. But you guys are seeing part of my tiny kitchen behind me. What other things might come up? So, like I said, you can use parchment paper. I really like the texture of macarons when baked on parchment paper. I cannot get around macaron on parchment paper, and being a designer, that really, really bothers me. And so that's why I use silicone mats. My macarons stay round on the silicone mats, and that's really important to me. I still like the texture. I actually don't really like macarons, which is good because I am not tempted to eat them, but everybody else really likes them, so that's what's important. Hollows, that is a big thing in the macaron world. I have found my macarons tend to have a bit of a hollow on the top, even when they are fully matured, meaning that I have put the filling in and I let them rest for about 24 hours before eating. I still will have a little bit of a hollow. I find that that's fine. It doesn't mess with the texture. My customers still love them. So if you're worried about getting the perfect macaron that doesn't have a hollow and, you know, has the perfect height, feet, or whatever, don't worry about it. As long as it tastes good, that's what's important. Have I tried parchment paper on the mat? Yes. It's not an issue of me being able to pipe a perfect circle on parchment. It's that parchment sucks up some of the moisture and they just end up in weird shapes. I even had someone contact me recently from a restaurant supply place, and they said that they had parchment paper that would result in round macarons. I really was excited. I tried them right away, and they were super wonky and not round. So if anyone has found a parchment paper that makes round macarons, let me know. I do want to try Teflon baking sheets. I just haven't gotten around to purchasing any to try out. I've heard that they bake up more similar to parchment, but keep them round. Is Two More Cookies, is that a parchment paper company? Because if that works, then I'm totally down for that. All right, we still have about 5 minutes on the timer. How do my labels look for ingredients? I use my home printer and Avery print and Avery labels. I have to list every ingredient for my state. Luckily, macarons have very few ingredients, so that's awesome. And the buttercream has a lot of overlap with the ingredients. So what I love about macarons is as long as I'm not throwing in something like Fruity Pebbles cereal or something like that, my ingredient list is very small. So I just print them on my home printer and I stick the label on the back of my box. Like I said, most of my stuff is pretty simple. I try and make most of my things by trying to make most of my stuff from scratch. I do kind of, like I said, I use amaretti flavors sometimes, or I'll use a jam. A lot of times I try and make my own fillings also by using fresh fruits and whatnot and cooking them down into my own jam. So that cuts down on the ingredient label also. It gets interesting when I do a mix set, like at holidays and such, and I end up listing each one separately. So if I have 3 flavors, I'll list that flavor and then I'll list the ingredients for that so people know what's in each one. Alrighty. Still have a few more minutes. Any other questions? I use pre-made boxes. I really like the cute macaron boxes that slide into a sleeve and have like a divider, but my macarons tend to be slightly too fat for that. So I end up either having to make them have less filling to fit in those, or I just get annoyed and give up on them. So I have found that 6x6 inch cupcake boxes work really well. Actually, they don't need to be cupcake boxes. I just use them because they hold 4 cupcakes, and so I can use them for multiple purposes. So when I do the cupcake boxes, I fit 2 macarons in a cupcake liner, and then I put them in the 6x6 box, and they fit in there perfectly. I found this has helped me cut down on the packaging. So that is what I use. I like the ones that just pop open. I don't have time to keep building boxes. That's another reason why I've switched over to 6x6 ones. So I'm trying to consolidate my packaging. Being a baker who doesn't do sugar cookies, I have a lot of other things that I do, like cakes, and I can't exactly put a cake in a macaron box or vice versa. So where I can, I try and overlap things. So my cake tasting boxes for weddings are the same boxes I use for dozen cupcakes. I use the same box for 4 cupcakes and a dozen macarons and such. So I have a really small house. I don't have a lot of storage, so as much as I can cut down there, the better. All right, we're at 2 minutes. I'm gonna flip the camera around and we're gonna do the jiggle test to see if they're ready. I will guarantee you these are not ready because it's not been long enough, but I wanna show you so you can see really well what I'm talking about when they jiggle. So I'm opening my oven. I'm gonna pull them out so you can see them better. And I use my finger and I push on it a little bit. This is really hard while holding phone. And you can see the top pushes away from the bottom. You don't want to push too hard, otherwise it will get stuck like that. So that's obviously a really big jiggle because we're still a little ways away from being ready. You want to pull out your macarons when there's no jiggle at all. You don't want to let it go too far over because they'll get harder and crunchier. If that happens, if you've over baked them, you can, some people will take a little bit of milk and paint a little bit of milk on the bottom and it'll help soften them up a little bit. Or if you can just fill them and let them rest a little bit longer, let them mature longer, that helps also. I find with Italian method, the shell is thicker than in French method. I've not done Swiss method, but Italian method, the shell itself is thicker. It's not as fragile. That was my problem with French, is the tops kept being super fragile, and so that's why I got really annoyed and figured I had to try something else. So I like to fill my macarons actually more like 48 hours before I give them over for someone to eat. I just want to make sure that they're the right texture for them to eat, and I don't want them to have a crunchy macaron. So for me, I find that 48 hours is a good point. They're obviously good for longer than that. You don't have to just wait 48 hours and hurry up and eat them. I'm going to test them again. It's been 18 minutes. Sometimes they need a little longer in the oven. Sometimes they need a little less. I'm going to flip this over. So you can see it's still pushing. So I'm going to give these another 2 minutes. I think that's what they're going to need. Lately, mine, I think because I have some thicker pans, they are, they're needing a little longer time. How long do they last? Okay, so macarons last in the fridge, in a sealed container, airtight container, about a week, or you can freeze them. They'll last longer than a week. I have some that are in my fridge downstairs from Christmas, and I munched on one last week and it was fine. Obviously, if there's something more perishable, they will not last that long. And if there's a really wet filling, they'll get mushier faster. I have scrapbook boxes that I like to store them in. They are, let me grab them. I'm going to put this in the holder real fast. So I use scrapbook boxes to hold them. They look like this. They're 12 by 12 inches. I line them with plastic wrap, and then I put the shells in there, filled or unfilled, with the scrapbook, and then I put another layer of plastic wrap on top to make it more airtight, because those ones are not airtight. I just found I needed a bigger storage solution than anything else. So I normally like to fill my macarons and then I store them, but if they're not filled, they'll last really, really long. I do prefer them in the fridge when they're unfilled, or in the freezer if you're going to last really long. Yeah, you can store them either way. All right, it has been another 2 minutes, so we're going to check these again. So I'm pushing. There's still a very, very, very slight jiggle. So we're going to let this cook a little bit longer. Just do 1 minute. All right, can you decorate them? Yes, I have used candy melts to decorate some for, I'm probably going to butcher the name, Diwali. It's a Hindu festival for a client of mine. So I did that. I know people will use royal icing. I have painted on them with vodka and food coloring. I've done like splatter painting, once again with like glitter, with like gold dust and Everclear and stuff. So yes, you can decorate them. I generally don't. I don't often have time. Sometimes I do, because sometimes clients will ask me to do like a gold streak or a gold design or something. It's normally gold. Someone wants a little bling on them. But yeah, I know you can use all sorts of different things for that. So when you thaw them, you want them to stay in the sealed package until they are room temperature. And we're gonna check these one more time. They should be done. See, they're not going anywhere. I guess that one is a little bit, so I'm gonna put it in for just a second longer. Thaw them, and they're in, keep them in the sealed package, and you don't want like the moisture to leave or, you know, get to them or anything like that. So just do that. And all right, these are done. I'm going to put my phone down because I need 2 hands. So here they are. So you want to keep the macarons on the pan until they are completely cool. So I am going to try and pull apart the 2 pans to try and do this faster. But I should have done 1 pan earlier for you guys so I could show you how to pull them off the mat. That's great. Now we have 1 pan done. We obviously still have batter. So I will show you and pipe the next batch. We're just doing the same way. I have not piped it ahead of time. I wait until my first batch is out of the oven, and then I put these in. Sometimes I will pipe them right before I pull out the first tray. It just depends. And my process is a little different than what I showed you today. I actually get my sugar syrup going while I do everything else. But that's just because I know how long it takes on my stove. I wanted to make sure that for the live that we knew exactly what we were doing and just doing 1 step at a time. But once you get used to doing macarons and you know your equipment and your timing a little better, you can definitely speed up the process. Normally it takes me about 15 minutes to get my first batch in the oven. So if I have a big macaron day when I'm baking the last tray of macarons, that is when I start doing my next batch, when I start mixing everything up. So I can do like 8 batches in a day. So I can, so these make 4 dozen, so 8 times 4. So we're whacking these again. You see, remember there's still a little bit of a nipple on these, but in the oven when they bake, they're perfectly flat. Over here, these are the baked ones. They're flat, they're still warm, so I'm being really careful. When they're still warm, they're still pretty fragile. You don't want to smush them. So I'm going to put this next set in the oven, and answer any other questions you guys might have, and then I'm going to sign off. And you want to make sure you don't put your macarons on hot pans. So before, when I was when I had fewer pans, I used to have to wait for the pans to cool off before I could do the next batch. Now I have enough that I can just go one after the next after the next. So that is very helpful. If you pipe your macarons onto hot pans, the bottoms bake faster and then they get all kind of weird. What kind of phone stand do I use? This, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. I got this via one of those goofy ads on Instagram. This is what it looks like. Hold on. Let me flip it. It's like this. It's got a light on the bottom and a light on the top if you want. And this is what the phone goes in. I forget what brand it is. I don't think it says on here. No, it doesn't. It came from China. It didn't take that long. I like it so far. I haven't used it all that much. I'm trying to get better about doing videos. You can actually like hook it up to your phone and have it it has a little remote, and it will, you can like have it take photos directly using the remote. I haven't tried that yet. And I think it actually has a camera built into it too, and I haven't tried that either. It is real. Yes, Becky, they are real. They do ship. They are not that expensive, and it's actually quite sturdy, and it folds down really, really small. So it's really nice when you have not much storage like I have in my house. Is there a list of supplies? There is a list of supplies in one of the comments under the event. I think I listed everything that I used there. So you can look back there. It has a list of all the ingredients and the measurements for the ingredients, as well as the supplies that we use today for baking macarons. All right, so I'm going to move this tray. So here's my tray. It's sitting on top of my toaster oven because that's the kind of kitchen I have. And I am going to move the Silpat, or the aprons mat, whatever you want to call it, the silicone mat, down to this cooling rack to just let them cool off a little bit faster. All right, so they're there. We're gonna let them cool off a bit, and then we will peel them off. And when you make macarons, like I said, you want to make sure that they are completely cool before you pull them off the mat. Otherwise, they will stick to the mat. And you also want to sort of, almost you peel the mat off of the macaron. If we did these right, these actually will sort of pop off really quickly on their own. If I underbake them, they will stick to the mat a lot more. So you don't want to underbake, otherwise they'll stick. And you can see, like I said, I'm not always the best at making them all the same size. It doesn't help that I'm talking to a whole bunch of people either. But they are round, and that is very important to me. So any other questions? All right, I feel like we should all have a dance party while we wait for these to cool off, but that's all right. We won't be able to see each other anyway. I just realized I forgot to set my timer for my second batch, so I'm going to put on like 13 minutes or so, just to remind me. Do I heat seal them? Generally, no. I did for the advent calendars, because I knew that they were in like their individual little holes and that they needed to be packaged in a way that they would stay fresh for 12 days. I don't think any of my customers actually took the whole 12 days to eat them. From what I could tell is they did them, a lot of them opened them up all at once, which is totally fine. But I did heat seal those. Generally, I do not. I will sometimes throw in a macaron as a like thank you, like you guys do your thank you cookies, and then I will heat seal those. I have a little round sticker that says thank you on it, or thank you for your order, that I'll stick on it. But generally, no, I put them in the box and I just tell the customers to store them in an airtight container. And actually those boxes, the 6x6 cupcake box I use, fit perfectly in a gallon Ziploc bag. So that's how I store them before I've handed them over to the client. Do I store them on the side? Yes. I generally store them on the side. They take up less room that way. That is also how I package them. I package them on their sides. You can do them flat. Like if I have extra room in my boxes, I will do them flat because they fill up more room. But generally, they are on their sides when they are packaged and when they're being stored. These are almost cool enough to take off. I should turn off my space heater to cool them faster, but it's only 64 in here, so I'm just going to leave it on. Any other questions? Faye, you've been awesome. Thank you for all the awesome questions. How many fit in the 6x6 box? 1 dozen. Yeah, you could put them in front of a fan if you wanted to cool them off. They cool off pretty fast. Like I said, I have a bunch of mats and pans, so it's not really a problem. I'm just waiting so that I can show you how I peel them off. I normally just will finish up a batch, and when I have the third tray in, then I start peeling off the first set. But yeah, if you want to cool them off faster, go ahead. It's not going to like impact them if they get cooled off faster. Like I said, my kitchen's cold. It's normally colder than this in the middle of January, so they cool off really fast for me. All right, I'm going to try and pull one off. I'm going to just set you up here. Okay, let me get my stand so you can see more of what I'm doing. Alright, so I just was testing one in the corner, and you can see, so I just kind of flip the mat, and generally they just come all off. Some of these are still a little warm, so like this one's sticking, you can see, it's because this one's still a little warm. If I had not been so impatient, that would have been fine. Here's what the bottoms look like. They're flat, they are airy. There's not really much of a texture there. Here are my feet. Sometimes they're a little taller, sometimes they're a little shorter. I don't worry too much as long as I have feet and a dome. Like I said, I don't really worry about hollows. My customers love them with or without hollows. And the hollows fill in normally when you let them mature. So this is Italian macarons. If any of them don't come off super duper easily, it's probably because they're still warm or you underbaked. So, like I said, like this bigger one is still stuck to my mat. It's a little bit still warm. Okay, it came off. But if anything doesn't come off super easily, you just want to sort of like curve your mat and peel the mat away from the macaron. And that's how I do it. If you just lift off like I just did there, then you often will leave stuff on the mat. So don't do that. So I will answer any last questions, and then this will be the end. I hope you guys enjoyed this and have learned something new. Any other questions? I can come back later also and look and see if anyone has other questions afterwards, and I will answer them as well. Awesome, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. And like I said, I will go on and fill them myself. You can fill them with whatever you want. Ganache, buttercream. I use easy buttercream. And then I put them in a container that's airtight, and I let them sit for 48 hours before eating them or giving them to a customer. So that is Italian macarons for you. And I hope you guys enjoyed. See you.